So it wasn't until I finally went to Berkeley that my whole paradigm shifted, right? So,
So Paul, you said
yeah.
San Fernando Valley. What part of the San Fernando Valley and what high school?
Oh, okay. So I went to, I'll get to that, but
Okay.
at first we lived in Encino, and then we moved out to Canoga Park, an area of Canoga Park called Winnetka. Uh, and then eventually to Woodland Hills. So further west, kept moving further west. But my father was had the same name, a different middle name, so I wasn't a junior. He was a Canadian citizen who came over, in the 40s, looking for, he, as somebody in his relative was involved in radio, and so he saw an opportunity. He married my mother, who was her father was Austrian, German Austrian, left Austria before the outbreak of the First World War. He was in the reserves, but I guess he was pretty smart, and he uh, saw this is a good time to emigrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
So
he coming for the health care, Paul?
uh,
He was
yeah,
coming for the health care, wasn't he?
right.
Health care, come for the health care, stay for the gun violence.
I love
Yeah.
the slide. This slide is just gorgeous.
Yes.
And your parents are beautiful.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So they met in Chicago. Now, my father he was a dyed-in-the-wool Union man, but he was also very much an Irish Catholic. And when they married, they made some sort of agreement. I never got the details of it. My mother, uh, uh, my father made sure that all of us were trained as Catholics. I went to 10 years of Catholic schooling. Eventually became an atheist. But my mother skipped all that, and she had agreed that the kids would be raised Catholic, but she would not have to go to mass and all that. And when I asked her about that once, she says, well, when her family moved to Chicago, they couldn't find a Catholic church. And I found that pretty unconvincing. So, and so for some time, I suspected that maybe she had Jewish ancestry, but I did 23andMe, and they said nope, no such luck. So I was born in Chicago. I was the oldest of three boys, but my sister was 4 years older than me. So
This
that's
is amazing.
You're so cute, Paul.
So cute.
yeah.
So
Well,
cute. But you
things
look a little bit
change.
devilish. You got a devilish little look in your eyes.
Yeah, and it got worse. So then in 1950, my father was transferred out to the West Coast to work in television. At first, he worked in the studio on Sunset there, an old, I think it's kind of an Art Deco building. And then eventually they opened CBS Television City, and that's where he worked for all of his life. So we first, as I mentioned, we lived in Encino for a while, but then we moved to an area of Canoga Park called Winnetka. And I found, this is when I was 9 or so, and I found that this small estate that we lived on was actually part of a collective at one point. These people had kind of a commune, and they had orchards. So what we lived on was the remnant of walnut orchard. And then to the west of us was just acres and acres of grapevines that we went and played in as kids. So it was a wonderful place to grow up in. We had tree house, trampoline, little pool, and so all the kids would come over and play there. My sister was into horses, right? She was influenced by, I forget what that series was called, something Velvet.
A national velvet.
National Velvet, yeah. So she was, and so she was kind of a horsey person, and so my nephew is still involved with horses. He's a farrier. He shoes horses.
Oh, really? Blacksmith.
So I went to a couple of years of elementary school at Our Lady of Grace, and encountered a really vicious nun there. Uh, oh, she was horrible. You know, she said, "What are you doing with your hand down in your pants?" Right? I said, "Tucking in my shirt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Right? And then went to a couple of years of public school, and then Our Lady of the Valley up to 8th grade. And then my father wanted me to continue my Catholic education, but I think by that point I was an agnostic, and I hated nuns. So I started at Notre Dame High School. And I originally wanted to study Spanish because I had an aunt that was from Colombia, and she encouraged that. But they said because I placed in honors, I had to take Latin. So I pursued Spanish on my own. But I also picked up a couple of years of French there. It's a good school, and at that point I was a math science major, but I was took Latin, and in the 60s discovered that I had an uncle that was from Chicago. He had moved out, and he was a bit of a swindler, a crook, or whatever. I mean, he had his hands in all sorts of things, like if the city wanted to build a golf course, he'd put together a company and put in a bid. But I used to spend summers at his place in the Los Feliz area. It was old Harry Chandler mansion. But it was a fun place to spend time in. It was just it reminded me a lot of the haunted house, or, the house with the seven gables, and all those Gothic American tales. He at one point he owned the Raleigh Studios in Hollywood, but this was the estate here. So I spent time studying Latin around the pool there. There's a carriage house there with rooms on the second floor. Just everything was empty. You couldn't fill this mansion. And the house, the third floor was all empty, and my cousins, whenever they had a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, they'd move up to the third floor. My uncle was very liberal, tolerant. He said, if students want to, if the kids want to smoke, let them. They'll grow out of it, right? Anyway, he claimed that he was a communist, which was interesting. And in this one wing of the house, there's a guy that was the editor of this paper, this leftist paper in Los Angeles at that time. I was trying to think of the name of it, but I couldn't recall. But yeah. And it just, I thought, how can a millionaire be a communist? But I later asked a professor friend, and he says, well, you know, if we have communism, everybody will be a millionaire. I don't know about that, but everybody probably would be happy as long as you didn't have a totalitarian dictatorship. So it's during this period that I read a number of different books, including Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, which really influenced my thinking. I don't know how many of you have read it, but I remember distinctly in it, there's this, the main character visited this reservation, like, you know, and it was, you know, people were living in conditions that reminded me the stark conditions that Native Americans live in on reservations here. And of course, the Palestinians in their Bantustan. So that's influenced my life. At that point, Lord of the Flies, Siddhartha, Stranger in a Strange Land, and of course in Latin, we were discouraged from reading Howard Fast's Spartacus. And of course, anytime somebody tells you not to do something as a teenager, you want to do it even more, right? Okay, so I grew up with, I had two younger brothers, Dave and Steve. Dave was 8 years my junior, but then this is my sister. This was taken around 2000. This is after my father had passed away. He died fairly young at 65 of prostate cancer. But my mother lived to almost 90, but died of Alzheimer's.
Oh.
My youngest brother is in a care center. He's got MS, but he was he went and trained. He became a plasma physicist. He did research at Livermore and UCLA and Davis. Okay, so I went off to Berkeley in '64, and this was a time of great student upheaval, as you remember. We're coming out of the House of Un-American Activities. I missed the sort of the tail. I was the tail end of that. And then there's the free speech movement.
Did you meet Mario Savio?
Yes. I didn't know him personally, but you can see here, this is Sprawl Steps, right? The FSM. And this is me standing with my some of my roommates from the dormitory. We lived in a dormitory the first year, but I love the look on this fellow here, right?
Nice Bermuda shorts on you.
Yeah, well, I guess that was the mode back then, right? Oop, I can't get rid of my, oh, clear all drawings. There, okay.
If it doesn't allow you to, there we go. Oh, speak of the devil, and there he is.
Yeah, so this is the free speech movement. I'm okay, so then, you know, that you know, then you had the anti-war movement, which I got involved in very much. I had a student deferment at first, and then when I graduated, went to graduate school there. At first, if you took took the GRE and you scored, got a certain score, you got a you were clear. But then they changed their mind. They said that was unfair. And then I did a CO, applied for a CO and got it. Eventually, I did some research, and I was able to put together a defense saying that my Catholic upbringing, the writings of early church writers like Origen had influenced my thinking, but then eventually they took my CO away because they said, "Well, how come your brother then, was in the army, right? He was drafted and spent some time in Vietnam, briefly until he was wounded." So then after that, I got a lucky number, and then I was out. So I was spared that, but I channeled my energies into fighting the war. Still am, but the only thing the military seems to have learned from that experience is that you can't have an all civilian army. We went to a mercenary army basically. So this was also the time of, it was the age of Aquarius, Golden Gate Park, and so we're all involved in
Paul, is that a Japanese maple up there on the top of the screen?
yeah, you got it. You're a botanist, I see.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, and then over in the upper right-hand corner, that's my roommates and I back in, that's our last year in college. They all went on to become, teachers, scientists, and so forth. But it was funny that of the six of us that lived in this old Victorian house, half of us turned out to be gay. So we were very open back then. So then I graduated in '68 and then continued on during, of course, by that time I had switched my major. I think after the first year, I switched out of math, science, biochemistry major. I kind of met my match at Berkeley, I was too much of a gentleman scientist. I'd leave my chem experiment and go out and get a coffee and come back, and then I'd spend a couple hours puzzling why my experiment wasn't coming out right. Later on, I discovered that it was probably sabotage. The competition is very cutthroat. So I then switched into classics. I took a BA in Latin, and then in graduate school, I got an MA in ancient history and Mediterranean archaeology. That was on the right, left. That's a picture of me at graduation. I climbed up onto one of the sculptures on the Sather Gate, and my mother's going, "No, no, don't do that, Paul." And my father's encouraging me. He says, "Yeah, that's great, great."
Hey, Paul, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
What did your parents think about your anti-war activism, both your mother and your father?
Good question. Yeah. So this. My father was very much influenced by the media. What's going on, and so I had to do some splaining to him, but he was sent to cover the Democratic Convention in Chicago in '68.
Wow.
And that really changed his political perspective. After that, he was pretty much, he supported me on my political activities. He helped me when I put on a forum. This was the first forum I did on Israel-Palestine at CSUN. It was called San Fernando Valley College back then. I got a teaching position there, and so I hosted a forum there, and he knew this a guy, a doctor that he worked with at CBS, who did a terrific job of really explaining the Palestinian position, and I think he really won over the crowd. So my father really, after '68, he had a complete turnabout on you know, up until then, he was pretty much a Reagan Democrat.
What about your mom?
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
good question. So my mother, you know, very intelligent person. You know, I almost thought she was a psychic. You know, almost this woman can read my mind. You know, but she's very quiet. Except when she got angry, and then she'd start cussing in German or Yiddish. But she later, after my we all graduated and everything, you know, my mother pretty much told my father, okay, you know, my job is done, you know. So she pretty much spent her time playing bridge. She became a life master. And she'd go to all these tournaments. Later, she became more and more a pronounced Republican, and I thought, oh, geez, over the deep end, right?
So,
Bring
Paul, I have a question.
Yeah.
So there's probably relatively few people major in ancient history and Mediterranean archaeology. Do you have some idea why you were drawn in that direction, and what did you think you would do with it?
Oh, okay. So originally I wanted to become an architect as a kid, you know, in grammar school. And my father said, there's no money in it, you know. So what did I do? I went into archaeology instead.
There's a boatload of cash in that.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, so it was probably my 4 years of Latin in high school that influenced me. And then, of course, I took some more Latin courses at Berkeley. And then in '67, I switched my major. I was flunking out. I just bombed all my math classes, everything, you know. And so I was on the dean's list. And so I decided to change my major and went into classics instead. I think I was influenced by the courses, the Latin courses that I took, and I was really intrigued by it. So as far as the future in it, I could see teaching, you know.
Paul, with all those Latin classes, are you qualified to be a Latin now?
Sorry, I've got
It was a joke.
the
Never
leaf
mind.
blowers there at work there.
I was saying, with all those Latin classes, are you qualified to be a Latin now?
A Latinist, yeah. So eventually I got an MA in Latin. So I taught Latin at CSUN for a while, but and then let's see, I should go. Okay. 67, I got an appointment to a junior year abroad to study in Rome. This is a new program that had opened up where we stayed at an annex of the American Academy at Rome. And so we studied Latin and Greek, and we visited all the various ancient sites and all that. And that's what really spurred my interest in archaeology and history even more.
Thanks.
Okay, and then in graduate school, I heard a lecture by this archaeologist who's a Turkish fellow who was doing a dig at Aphrodisias in Turkey, and I was really awed by you know, the site It's a fabulous site. So a friend of mine and I signed on to work there during the summers. I worked there 3 seasons. I worked, so what you see on the left is the Odeon, which was covered,
Amphitheater.
like a small theater for, small performances. But then it also had a large theater, which I excavated. So it had sculptural workshops. It had, beautiful, buildings. It's very rich because of the sculpture that it produced for the Roman Empire, especially in the 2nd century AD. So National Geographic was one of the sponsors, along with Ford Foundation there. So this was a page in June 72 issue of National Geographic. This is me on the right there with the director of the excavations, Kenan Aram, who was turned out to be a real ogre, right?
Mm.
And then this was the statue that was uncovered in the theater as well. It's an athlete. This is a National Geographic photograph that they decided not to use because it looks like this athlete is smelling his crotch.
Oh, that's too bad. What was it made of? What is that
Oh,
statue?
marble. So the marble that was discovered in the quarries there had an iron content, which gave it more of a flesh color, rather than the white marble that they get from the Carrarian marble or Parian marble. This had more of a flesh color. Okay, so
Let me just ask one quick question about the excavations. When you guys were excavating, did you come across the tools that they used to create these sculptures, the chisels, or what kind of tools did they use to do this?
I didn't see it, but one of the geologists was doing some research in the area that they had quarried the marble in. I didn't know that he discovered any tools, but they would have been iron tools, and they used a lot of the same techniques that were probably used in Michelangelo's time, where they create a crack and then they put wedges in. Soak them, and then overnight, as they freeze, the water would expand and cut the block of marble off.
Wow, this is wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. I'm loving this.
So I went back to visit the site about 6 years ago, and the museum that they built there is chock full of sculptures that were found there. Rich relief work of all the emperors and mythological scenes and so forth, right? And then also on this here on the as you enter the theater here, there's a wall which had all this Greek inscription called the Emperor Diocletian's Edict of Prices. All sorts of special dispensations were given to the city of Aphrodisias because of its wealth. Okay, let's see.
You got to remove the drawing if you're trying to switch slides.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is the stage area. This theater was probably, it was expanded a little bit, but it was pretty much built in the 2nd century AD. You can see over time the theater the orchestra in the theater became smaller as the more and more of the acting, the performance took place on the stage, and it was double or triple story. You can see the whole stage building behind where they kept all the props and so forth.
Wow, amazing.
So they continued to excavate around this. I did some other excavation. Oh, this theater was carved into a man-made hill, what's called a tell. And the real archaeology went on this tell, because Kenan Aram, the director, was basically conducting a clearing operation. He was an art historian, and he was just looking for the goodies. He wasn't really interested that much in the stratigraphy. But I spoke to a man who is now the director working there, and I asked him whether the documentation that I did and the rest of us did was at all helpful, or whether it was, and he said, yeah, to some degree, we did a fairly good job considering. We did a fairly good job in recording the objects that came out. This whole theater was completely filled in with dirt.
Wow.
Because later you had these invasions, you had Celtic invasions, and then later you had the Seljuk Turks come in, and the city people took a lot of the ancient sculpture and building material to build a great wall, a defense wall around the city. Okay, so all through my life, I've been interested in traveling. My father particularly loved to travel. He got a trailer, and we'd go off in this trailer, and we'd go down to Mexico, Baja California, or up into Canada, or all around the state of California, and so I guess that's where I got my interest, kind of my taste for travel. But
You went to the island where my grandfather was born, Antigua.
oh, okay. Yeah, so yeah, the Caribbean. So I've pretty much been to all the countries in Latin America. There are a few like Paraguay and Belize that I haven't been to, and of course there are a lot of Caribbean islands that are their own little country. So in the 70s, after I finished at Berkeley, I came back to Los Angeles, and I went back to CSUN, which was San Fernando Valley College at that time, to do some teaching courses, right? CSUN has a very good teacher training program. At Berkeley, I took a few courses in teaching, but there, we basically sat under a tree there and discussed the philosophy of education. It was at CSUN that I really got the nuts and bolts training. But while I was going to taking classes there, I ran into this professor that I'd taken some courses from during the summer, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, working at teacher training." So he said, "There's a position open if you want to teach classics here, right?" So then for 4 years, from 74 to 78, I taught Latin and Greek and a lot of civilization courses, Roman culture, Greek culture. And then I started taking courses at UCLA to work on a PhD program, which I never finished. I got as far as advancing to the dissertation stage, but then I ran into problems with the people I was working with in Jordan. In '76, I started doing some archaeology in Jordan at a number of sites. But in any case, I took some more Latin courses at the UCLA, took a MA in Latin. And at one point, I was convinced, talked into taking a role acting in a Latin play. So all of our lines were spoken in Latin. So here I played the slave to Miles Gloriosus, this braggart warrior, right? So my experience with acting, right?
What exactly years were those, Paul, at UCLA?
This would be between, I guess, 70, late 70s and early 80s.
No, we just missed each other because I was there till 77.
Oh, okay. So you would have been in the northern part of the campus if you
Oh,
were
yes,
in
yes, yes, yes.
in the humanities. The southern part of the campus is all science. So between 76 and 83, I worked on a number of archaeological projects. So one was up here, the capital of Roman Arabia was Bostra, and so the site we worked at was al Jamal, just south of that. I worked at a site near Petra, which called al Jamal, because the Roman, this defense line here was called the Limes Arabicus. This is a ring of defense fortifications, camps, and so forth built there to defend against the Persians there. So these are a few dig photos. Here I am sitting enjoying. You can see in the back there we stocked up lots of beer, right, for the afternoon relaxation. I also went native. I liked the Arab costumes. So here you can see, but I also had a hat with horns. So, the Arab workmen who largely were Bedouin and Palestinian men. They call me Shadan, right? Satan, because of my hat there, right? Okay. Okay, so at Jamal was near Petra, located near Petra. Also, this near a Crusader castle called Karak Castle, further south. Now, in the upper right photograph there, I'm in Petra, and this Bedouin is showing me how to hold my my sword, my saber, right? And I think I bought one of the swords, right? But here I am with my my Jordanian. Now the Jordanian headdress is checkered, white and red. The Palestinian is white and black.
I have a question about Petra. Did you get to go? Did you get to go into this structure?
Oh, yeah, we worked there. We were doing in 76, we were doing a survey. And so I was traveling with this graduate student from UCLA and a driver and a Department of Antiquities rep. Now, the Department of Antiquities has a cave. They have a cave that we slept in. So we spent a couple nights sleeping in one of the caves in Petra. So I remember in the evening, walking out through the souk. It's this narrow opening that leads into this city, walking through it and encountering people come, Bedouin riding through on their horses, with their dogs, and getting scared out of my wits. But then outside of the Sikh, SIQ, there's a little hotel that was sort of incorporated some of the tombs into it. And I remember running into Baba Wawa, who was interviewing somebody in the restaurant there.
Wow. So what was it like inside there? So I know that this structure that's shown here on the left, it was sculpted out of a solid piece of
Yeah,
rock. Of
the mountain.
stone.
Yeah.
So what was inside?
Oh, okay. So the way they do it is they'd hang down a scaffold, and then they'd start cutting from the top, working down.
Yeah, I saw a documentary about that.
Yeah, and
but
then
they don't talk about what's inside.
Okay, inside is a large room, sometimes with a couple of adjoining chambers. But the sandstone is very beautiful because it has a lot of these different minerals in it. So, you've got yellows and oranges and reds in it. It's very beautiful. So this is the treasury, which you encounter as soon as you come in from the Sikh. And then you had the whole city inside. You had a large temple, which is pretty much gone now. But then there's a trail that would lead up to a couple of trails that would lead up to the high points. There's one point, you went up to the top, and there's this altar there, right, where they did sacrifices. So the ancients sacrificed on high places, right, because that's closest to heaven, to God. And they've done subsequent testing on this altar and discovered with this phenol, this type of chemical that picks up traces of human blood even after centuries and centuries. So had indicated that they'd done human sacrifices. And I've tried to make the point with some Christians, born again Christians, that yes, God expected Isaac.
Kill his son.
Yeah, and yeah, it was sacrifice your firstborn unto me, right? Now this practice pretty much died out among the Jews and also the Phoenicians, but not until it actually was transferred to the Carthaginians, this Phoenician colony, who continued to practice human, sacrificing their firstborn babies well into the Roman period, historical period.
Wow.
But yeah, and then there's another trail that led up to another high point, which led to another similar type structures as this treasury here. I think I may have, no, I don't have a picture of it. So this is another dig photograph. And Vinny, I guess you can pick out the me. Right.
Yeah, we see you, Satan. Get thee behind me.
Get thee
Hail,
back.
Satan.
Yeah. So this was the whole dig crew here, employing a lot of Bedouin and Palestinian young men. This was an excavation at al Jamal, which means mother of the camels, I think. Totally made out of using this basaltic material here that is the whole Haran region of northern Jordan and southern Syria is filled with, right? This Haran region, when the French and British divided up the spoils of the First World War, they decided to draw the boundary right through this volcanic region because it's, it's hard scrabble. there.
Sykes-Picot.
Yeah, so this building here is another, it's, they called it the barracks building. I guess there's another, contingent of Roman forces stationed there. Okay, so in this period, working in Jordan, it's very easy to come into contact with, Americans working in the Foreign Service, the excuse me, the ambassador there, so forth. I remember at one point in '82, I said, I want to go up and visit Bosra, right? Because it's an important site. And he said, he advised me not to go there because, the Israelis had just, they had invaded Lebanon, and they were doing a hatchet job there. And so he advised me not to go, but I did anyway. I met a number, we stayed in a number of residences that were given to members of the Foreign Service, and they live quite well. They're given maid and cook and, large residence. I was intrigued with this, this lifestyle. And so at one point I looked into going into the U.S. Foreign Service. I took this test. It's kind of the mother of all tests at the Federal Center there down Westwood. They passed that, and then went on to do the interviews, which was conducted by members of the Foreign Service. But one of them said, if you go into Foreign Service, you pretty much have to implement the policies of the current administration. And of course, Reagan was president then. And I said, hell if I'm going to do that. So I quickly banished that thought and then went into teaching. So in '83, I signed a contract with LAUSD. I had I was told at first said because of the color of your skin, we need to integrate. So we're sending you to Fremont, which was largely African American school at that time. And I remember walking into the shoes, taking over a position of a teacher had left, and he was African American, and he had a one of the courses I was given was called Black History. And I remember walking into the class, and, all these kids looked at me and they said, you're gonna teach us Black history? And I said, why not? It's history, right? So, we'll research it together. So I had fun teaching there. But my heart was in teaching Latin, so I eventually got a position at John Burroughs Middle School, which was a gifted school. Some really bright kids there, and I could tell stories about some of their quirkiness, right? At one point, they decided to reconfigure and move the 9th grade to the high school, right? And that was pretty much my Latin seniors. So at that point, I moved to Venice High School, where I taught Latin and world history, right? They had a gifted a magnet there, which featured, at one point it had, how many, as many as 8. They offered 8 languages, but eventually it sort of died back to only 2, French and
Spanish.
And Spanish. Spanish, of course, always. But it's a great school. I discovered that Venice had a Latin museum. They had all these antiquities that one of the principals had collected in the 30s on trips to Italy. he would buy all these coins and amphora and vases, beautiful Attic and South Italian vases, which later Venice, in their stupidity, decided that they needed an extra room for an office for special ed. So they decided to clear out the museum, get rid of this stuff, right? And so it all was backed up and sent downtown. I don't know where it is. I've got a mind to, find out where all this stuff went, but they had some wonderful stuff. I tried to get the Getty to take it, and they had enough stuff. I was interested in, LMU has a museum, and they were interested in it, but I don't think LAUSD wanted to let it go. The principal at one point tried to sell it, right? And he was going to get a commission from the sale until one of the teachers stopped him. He said, "You can't sell this stuff. It was purchased with student body funds, right? You cannot sell it, right?" So that stopped him. Whenever I see this old ex-principal, I say, "Oh, what happened to the antiquities?" So it was during the 70s when I was teaching there that they had the Briggs Initiative. I got involved with Stonewall Democratic Club during this term. During this period, I was on the board of Stonewall Democratic Club when Ivy Bettini was president. She was a wonderful woman, and I worked on the No on Proposition 8 campaign. I remember standing, one of the polling places was at the Catholic church in my neighborhood, right? And I stood nearby with a sign, no on 8, no on hate. And I remember seeing some nuns walking along the sidewalk on the opposite side of the street. And she said, "Are you homosexual?" And I said, "Yes, we're all God's children." And she walked away in a huff, right? Nuns aren't exactly my favorite people, but I've met some really wonderful nuns that you could joke with, right? I remember this one sister in Pennsylvania that I took a course at Gettysburg College. And she wanted to travel with us through Amish country. And I said, and sister, when we get to intercourse, I want to take a picture of you in intercourse, right? Okay, so then I got involved with the Uptown Gay and Lesbian Alliance. Carl Mathis, who is serving as the president, was the one that ultimately introduced me to Dick and Sharon. And it's this year, during this past year, that I finally got OGLA to begin to start up a scholarship committee and award scholarships to students, graduating high school students that are going on to college, who have dedicated themselves to a service of doing good service, and especially service in the gay and lesbian community. Right. So I moved to Glassell Park in '86, this hilly region that Dick and Sharon live on. I'm on the western side of it. And so my view looks over towards LA, where you can see in the skyline there some of the
Right there. Yes.
skyscrapers. Yeah.
Yeah, I see Mount Washington Boulevard, the white railings, the white railings there. This
Uh-huh.
Mount Washington Boulevard.
Yeah, and I can see, the fireworks from Dodger Stadium, right? And this is would be the traffic streaming down Stadium Way here, right?
Cool.
So, especially during COVID, I've really spent time gardening, get my hands in the dirt. It's a good way to, give your, just kind of meditate on different ideas. Okay, so I said before, I love to travel, and I started traveling in Latin America, quite small as a child, so I've traveled all through Latin America. I've spent time working on my Spanish. I remember in, what was it, 74, one of the professors at CSUN that I shared an office with said, oh yeah, in Latin America, everybody knows English, but I discovered that was patently not true at all, so the best way to learn a language is to be kind of thrown into it, just in the mix.
Machu Picchu.
In 74, I went down there, but I never got up to Machu Picchu. I was stuck in Lima for a long time because I lost all of my traveler's checks on a bus. But later went back and with a hiking group, went to the, there's a whole valley here that's interesting.
Sacred Valley.
What?
The Sacred Valley.
Yeah, the Urubamba Valley. Yeah, it's just really.
Did you climb Huayna the knob on right there in the distance?
No. But with this tour, we landed up following some of the Inca trails, and at one point we got off the train at K47, and we hiked up, and we came in through the
Gate of the Sun.
The Gate of the Sun, and there it was, laid out. So really amazing experience. And here's a shot that I took, this little Inca boy, but you notice his mother's, decked him out and sent him there, among the ruins to, get tourist money, holding a little lamb. But notice he's got tennis shoes, right?
Yeah.
Now, the Incas were famous for running. They what were they, Chach? They were given some name. They would run to the seacoast and bring back seafood, or run up to the mountains and bring back ice and stuff. So they were great runners. And Vincent, Vince, you've been there?
Yes.
Yeah, you remember coming down this switchback in the bus? There'd be this a guy, he'd wave to you, and then you come back down the next, and there he was again, right? It was fun. But I spent a lot of time traveling in Mexico, so I met this young driver, and he I used him to drive all through Mexico so I could take pictures. So I got to know Mexico probably better than I know the United States. I studied the history, and and of course it was a good way to be forced to learn the language, because a lot of the people that I got to know didn't speak English, right? So, and then there's this picture on the right. That's me in this hotel in Morelia, right? Someone said it looks like who's with the pianist with the
Liberace.
Liberace, yeah. So. Okay, and then 91, so I went back to Rome, did a Fulbright at the 6 weeks at the American Academy, and then 2 weeks down in Naples at the Villa Virgiliana. This is a small villa that originally was owned by the University of I forgot, a German university, and after World War I, they decided you don't own it anymore, and they landed up giving it to this Virgilian group that uses it as a base. Okay, as I mentioned, in '67, I'd done a junior year at the ICCS in Rome. So every chance I had, I would go back to Rome, which became my favorite city. When I come back from working in Turkey or Jordan, I would land up in Rome, use that as a base. But then later, I did more travels in France. When I was in Rome the first time in '67, one of the classmates was Jack Spalding of the Spalding family. You know, they make athletic
Basketballs.
equipment. Yeah. And he had a little Volkswagen, and he and I and a couple of the young women drove up to Paris. And so that was the first time. We landed up staying in a divey hotel on the left bank of the Seine. Oh, it was really bad. We asked for 2 rooms with, they said, we don't have separate double beds. We have a double bed. But it turned out, you know, Jack and I looked at this bed, and it was, you know, it looked like a single, and what are we going to do, you know? So we slept head to foot, yeah. But the bathroom was horrible. There's no toilet paper. There's only newspaper on the floor that you could use. It's horrible. But then later, my youngest brother, David, went to school with somebody in Colombia that was married to this woman whose father was a doctor. And when he died, she used the money to buy this little kind of a small chateau in Burgundy. And they let me use it a couple of times. So it was located probably over towards the left here, one of these little houses. It was filled with all these bedrooms and a huge kitchen. So this was built in the encinture walls of, you see there's a 12th century castle here, and then you had the encinture walls around here. So this is all these houses were built inside the encinture walls, and this was called in French, it was Le Ville. And then down below here was the village, and it was very French, you know. It's just France really is in the heartland of the country, which is of course Burgundy. So in the left photograph, you can see the castle up there and the ville, and then down below is the village with this little lake that's formed from a stream that flows through it. It even had one of its very own early Christian saints. And on the weekends, they would serve crepes. And so this was the base that we used to explore Burgundy, you know, Dijon. And one of my favorite places was this called Guédelon. If you ever get a chance, they have tours from Paris that take you down on a bus to this construction site where they're building a 12th century, building a medieval castle from scratch using the original techniques. So I visited a couple of times at various stages of construction. This is what it looks like now. They're working on the enclosure walls. The first time I went there, they were working on the manor house, but it should be completed in 2025, and it's by developing these, redeveloping or rediscovering these techniques of building old churches, and castles that has enabled them to rebuild Notre Dame in Paris after the fire. This is the church Basilica of Saint Mary Magdalene at Vézelay. Vézelay was an important medieval town. This is where the Second Crusade was launched, right here in the cathedral. Now, this basilica is very prominent, and it's studied in art history because of its sculptures, right? All the column capitals inside the nave are different, right? They represent different scenes. And then also the large sculpture screen in the narthex as you go in into the vestibule is studied by art historians. But so, this whole area is very rich in history. This is where Caesar fought the last battle, against the Gauls, right?
Are
Okay,
these the
so
Gauls?
the what?
These are the Gauls that Caesar was fighting. The next
Yeah.
slide that you're sitting with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. These are fight Caesar's opponents here. So some of the people that I met in Ugla, one of my two of my neighbors I ended up traveling with. The Mark on the right is an architect who spent many years working in KSA, the Saudi Arabia, and he liked to travel. The one fellow on the right with the funny hat there taught at UCLA, but he also worked in Afghanistan with the Peace Corps, and so they love to travel, and so we did a number of travels together through Southeast Asia and to Brazil, where Mark bought a beach house up near Bahia. Bahia and Salvador is a wonderful city, very rich in cultural tradition. You've got a very strong Afro influence, and it's there that it got influenced in the mixing, the syncretism of Yoruba culture with Christianity, which I looked into when I went to Cuba later on. Cuba, Havana especially, has a very vibrant culture with lively arts and music scene.
Music.
Yeah, and so Byron, this artist that I'd met in Ugla, had accompanied a number of famous singers, and he's done stuff on his own. He had been to Cuba 29 times before that, and I said, Byron, you've got to sign me up. So I and a couple of friends of mine went with him a couple of years ago on a tour. It's a wonderful trip. We talked to tourists who had gotten off the boat, and they said, boy, we haven't seen places that you've been to. I mean, in the restaurants that he took us to, and the various scenes. And at one point we went to speak with some of the ministers of Santeria, this syncretic religion that I spoke about.
Paul, I got a question for you on Cuba.
Yeah.
In that totalitarian, hateful place, how many homeless people did you see?
Zero.
Zero. Exactly.
Yeah, so we weren't allowed to stay in any of the hotels run by the government. So we did homestays. So we stayed in the Vendado, this area of lovely little homes, and they rented out rooms there, and they offered a breakfast, and then off we had a small van that they'd take us run on. So it was just basically Byron, myself, and my two friends, a very small group. So we headed out into the countryside. We went to a cigar factory, went to Trujillo, where there's a big, lively music scene down there. We met some people who would come down intentionally for the music scene, you know.
Did you go to Hemingway's house?
No, Byron had taken a tour there once before, but it's really very restricted. You can't actually go inside.
Go in, yeah.
You just walk around the outside. So I said, I'll just wait for the PBS documentary on Hemingway and see it. So, you know, very lively scene. Havana, they've done a wonderful job of restoring the old buildings. At one point, we were taken to, so Byron knows all sorts of people. He's been there so many times. He knows people in the government. He knows Mariela Castro, who is the niece of Fidel Castro, the daughter of Raul Castro. Mariela's mother was very politically active, so she was very supportive of the gay community, which is Cenex, which we visited here, and that's where I met Mariela. She came out and she met us there, and then we were taken to Havana Library, and we met with the chief librarian, who's in the center there. Here are my travel companions. So he told us how Fidel would come in very late at night, and he would sit at one of the desks doing some reading, some research. This is okay. So this is Byron Motley on the left there, right? And these are my other two friends, Elka and Birgitta, who are from Germany and Sweden.
Is that a statue of Marti?
Yes. Jose Marti. Yeah. So this is the library. And then down below, you can see the name here.
Patria o Muerte.
Okay. So as a result of my work with working with the Bedouin and Palestinians in Jordan, as well as my other travels in Syria, Turkey, Egypt, Tunisia, and Morocco, I became more involved in issues tied to the Islamic world. So, you know, I find it almost, it's insanely ludicrous how people are so frightened of Islam. You know, they think, oh my God, it's Satan's religion. But one of my first experiences, you know, I told you we spent some nights sleeping in the caves in Petra. And one evening, as we were sitting there, the sun had gone down, and so the driver in the Department of Antiquities Rebs, who were fasting, it was Ramadan during the summer. Of all times, Ramadan and the hot summer, of course, you know, coincided that year. So the sun went down, and Ahmed, the rep, was peeling a hard-boiled egg. And just then a poor Bedouin boy showed up, and he reached his hand out, and the rep gave him his peeled egg. And I thought, what a wonderful, I mean, this is the whole meaning of Ramadan, that, this is a time when you experience what the poor people that don't, are food insufficient, are experiencing. But lo and behold, it's the wealthy of, Saudi Arabia, the princes and princesses who get on a plane, they fly up to Beirut, or now they go to Spain, so they can enjoy themselves and they don't have to, fast and experience what hungry people do. But yeah, so I've been very involved in this. So, I started writing letters. This was on the right, on the left. This is one of the first letters I wrote when I was going to, when I was at UCLA. I wrote this letter, and it just spawned all sorts of letters in reaction to it. But rereading it, it's really, it's very prescient in, what kind of, assessing what Zionism was attempting to do. Well, anybody that does any research and, sees what Jabotinsky had proclaimed, all these guys, Sharon and all these guys attempting to do is ethnic cleansing and the settler colonialism of Palestine. So the letter on the right was one that I sent to LA Times more recently. I think a part of it's hidden down below there. It's in the center there. This is under Pompeo, right? Okay, and then more recently, so I've worked with the fellow Hans Johnson, who has started this group called East Area Progressive Democrats. I'm involved with 4 Democratic clubs, Stonewall, East EAPD, there's the Northeast Dems, and then also Pasadena Foothills chapter. Except for EAPD, well, no, EAPD and Stonewall are fairly large clubs, but I've been trying to educate members of this group, about being progressive means supporting Palestinian rights. You can't be progressive and support Zionism, And I ran into a brick wall at Stonewall originally. Of course, Eric Bauman was in charge there. He and his partner Andrew Lachon, I remember talking to them about Palestinian rights, and the feedback that I got from Eric was, bomb, I thought I was talking to a JDL guy, the way he described how he grew up in Brooklyn, and to be a Jew, you had to really be tough and you had to fight back. And I said, I was thinking, now what does this have to do with poor Palestinians? Just beat them down, pulverize them, right? So, it happened to Eric, right?
Yes.
No.
Eric Bauman, yeah, he went, he was thinking with his little head and not his big head.
Ah.
Yeah. Do you know Eric? Do you guys know him? See, he's somewhat bombastic. He is gay. Openly.
Somewhat.
Married. Yes, he's quite bombastic. Yeah. But yeah, he was alleged, and I think that he admitted to improper activities with some of his subordinates.
Yeah, one of the fellows that he preyed on is a fellow in Ugla. He's a young fellow, I think in his 30s. He was actually the catalyst for starting getting this committee for the scholarship committee going. Of course, I've been trying to push it for years and years. Ugla would send money to, Friends of Project 10, this organization run by Virginia Uribe and her partner, Gail. But when Virginia died, Gail decided she didn't have the energy for it, and she kind of let it go. And I said, oh, this is our opportunity, so I kind of planted this idea. And then, of course, this younger fellow said, Ugla should devote more of its financial resources to help seniors going into college. And I said, yeah, this is what I've been talking about. But I think this fellow intimated, or he said something at one point about his being preyed upon by Eric Bauman. But I sort of have to wonder how, I had experienced people, molesters, when I was young. I remember in high school, one of my teachers was tried to molest me, but I think you sort of realize what they're up to, and so I just wanted to find out how far this guy was going to go, and then I said, no, I think I better go home.
Yeah.
So Eric is a gay Puerto Rican Jewish from Brooklyn, kind of a volcanic mix.
Eric is Puerto Rican.
Yeah, he's half Puerto Rican.
Oh, okay. So it must be his mother, because Bauman is, yeah. And then I think, I was trying to, at one point, I was trying to get Stonewall to sign on to one of my, I got a number of Democratic groups to endorse this, introduce a resolution that said criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. It's not the same thing. And of course, Andrew just fought it off, he said, no, we're not gonna.
This is the same arguments we went through with South Africa.
Yeah.
The BDS movement, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So Paul, if you ever want to write something, you can, contribute it to the LA Progressive. We will cover it and we'll spread it.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. I get sometimes I get the urge to write a piece, but I think more and more people are getting on the wagon, on the bandwagon, and writing stuff. So I'm happy that I'm in the vanguard of this movement, but I encourage other people to do more, and so yeah, if I write if I think of something, I'd be happy to write something. Oh, so here's the last piece. Here's a recent trip that I made to Spain. Well, Spain, and so I guess Picasso spent some time in Malaga, and here I am palling around now. Picasso had a penchant for women, so.
Really? I've never heard that.
I'm sure we had, must have had something in common, but maybe our interest in literature or art. All right. Any questions?
I must say, I think you did a fabulous job.
Oh, I love
it. It was incredible.
I just love this. I really love this. I learned a lot. I'm sure
I have a question for you, Paul.
I thank you. I appreciate your support and your interest. Yeah, Vinny?
Two questions. And if the answer is it's none of my goddamn business, that's, believe me, I will more than understand. As an old heterosexual man, I obviously can stick my foot in my mouth, but I'm
What
curious.
do I find in men?
No. I was curious when you first realized your sexuality and how it was coming out with your parents, particularly
okay.
the one became a dyed-in-the-wool Republican and whatnot.
Well, I mentioned growing up in, this in Canoga Park, we had this, like acre and a half that was filled with trees. And of course, we built tree houses and had a trampoline and a pool. And so all the neighborhood kids would come over, And I was also involved in scouting, and I remember I really liked one of the there's a squad leader that and I was his assistant squad leader, but I never did anything. But then I heard my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, was messing around with one of the neighborhood boys, and up in the treehouse, and I thought, oh yeah, and that got me interested. So that was around I don't know, age 15 or so. I started messing around. And of course, my mother would ask me, why are you hanging around these young boys? I mean, they were a couple of years younger than me, all these neighborhood kids coming over, I said, I like them, and so I think my parents suspected, but they eventually my father, came to really accept it, and he had no problem with it. My mother, I think, did. She didn't want to admit it, and I remember her sisters and brother came to visit at one point, and they asked her if Paul was homosexual, and her reply was, yes, but he's non-practicing. I said, oh, Mom, not for lack of trying. So it wasn't until, let's see, I went to Berkeley, and then some of my roommates, were practicing Catholics. They'd march off to mass, and I'd stay home and go do your thing, And then I think as I joined a fraternity my second year, I think I knew I was that's it, yeah. In my second year, I knew I liked guys, but I thought I was bisexual, and I think most people basically are. And I think one interest gets emphasized over the other. But I used to date women because I wanted to be around good-looking guys, So it was my mustache, right? But it wasn't until my junior, I think my junior year, that I started meeting people, and then I started really coming out. Certainly when I was in graduate school, I had boyfriends. I didn't date just one particular one. I had I tried to.
You were a Lothario.
Yeah, right.
Jim's been raising his hand.
Yeah. Oh, Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment because I had a very good friend that I went through college with, and when he started at UCLA, Paul and I are about the same age, and when this friend started at UCLA in the film school, that's when he sort of came out. But it was very much against everything to come out and say that you were, well, we didn't say, we called it homosexual, and then we had the gay liberation thing. So things changed, countrywide and worldwide when it came to gay liberation. And that's when a lot of people, started admitting to themselves or their families or whoever openly. But when I was in college, I graduated college in '67, and Paul was probably about at that same time. that was not like, there were no outlets for that.
No.
Something, and this friend of mine, my roommate, yeah, one of my roommates in college, I knew he was homosexual. You could just tell, but he could never, come out and say it. It was not accepted when you were in college in the 60s, or at least till 67.
Yeah, I was so the bar scene was sort of where you met people, but I was afraid to go to bars because I was afraid people would start grabbing at me and stuff. So I didn't know what would what the scene was like in there. But you sort of met people I know in on the Berkeley campus. There were certain areas where people would lie around in the grass, and you just start chatting with somebody, and and then you or I had a part-time job working in the Bears Lair, which was this student cafe, coffee shop, and I was running the cashier. So, there would be good-looking guys that would, guys that would come through the line there, and I'd start talking to them, and I'd meet people that way, But I think back then, people would kind of get an inkling. I talked to professors who were married, but you could tell that they were gay, and they only married in order to, as
Get a job.
yeah, get a job, and it was their what they call a mustache. But what you would ask them was, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" Right? And I heard recently
Surrender,
Dorothy
Dorothy.
was Dorothy. No, Dorothy was Dorothy Parker. Was that her name?
Dorothy Parker, the writer?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
That's
was
Dorothy
never.
Parker from the Round Table.
Yeah, so I was never really sure where the term came from, but it was like on cruises, they had when they're trying to cultivate gays, encourage them to travel, because gays don't have families, so they have a lot of disposable income, and they like to travel. And so they had, in some of the announcements, they would have Friends of Dorothy meeting in such and such a bar at 5 o'clock,
Oh.
And so you'd go, let's check it out. Let's find out who else on this cruise is is gay.
Paloma got her hand up.
Paloma has her hand up.
Oh, Paloma.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hello?
Can everybody hear me? Hello,
Yes.
hello. Yeah, so sorry, I'm on my phone, so I'm like moving around. But I just wanted to say, Paul, your presentation is so inspiring. It makes me feel like I'm so ready for traveling after this pandemic when I see all your slides. And I wanted to thank you for your inspiration. But also, I have two questions for you. The first question is, with the Palestine problem, like there's so much propaganda with a specific problem and fear mongering, and I kept thinking, like, how has Paul managed to, first, how did he feel when you first encountered that problem? What made you really stick with a specific one, and then how you managed to like overcome so much, or like fear mongering, and like they really go out of their way to like ostracize people, specifically like when you're focusing on that one. That's meant to be one question, by the way, but let me
Okay,
get
I
you
see
to
three
do that
parts
one.
to it. First of all, I feel like I'm roaring upstream oftentimes. But the Hasbara, the propaganda that's used is, it's a whole industry. And so it's really been a challenge to come up with counter arguments, and there are, and so, for that, you need a network in which to exchange ideas. As far as like discussion of the Palestinian issue, but I've had some friends and acquaintances who, if I begin to discuss this, they say, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, because the whole issue is just so, complex for them. It really isn't. It's quite quite clear, but the Zionists have made it very complex. It's like two nationalities vying for the same territory, but there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to share. There's no reason why one group should be subject to the other, deemed as inhuman or not worthy, and marked for expulsion. Right. And I sometimes turn the whole thing around. I say, if one thing
I'll be there in a
that
minute.
Jews should have learned from their experience, their treatment in Russia and in Europe at the hands of Christian anti-Semitism, is that they shouldn't treat a minority as second class. Right. Yeah, Vinny.
No, Jim first, please.
Oh, Jim.
Yeah, I just back to this the bars, the gay bars in LA.
Okay.
And Sharon and Dick I may have read this in the in the LA Progressive, but for up until a certain time, the police would raid the gay bars in LA and arrest
Oh
people,
yeah.
the bars, and they would beat the patrons up, because, and I don't know if it was against the law,
It was.
homosexual, I don't know under what pretense they did this, but I remember just
Sodomy laws.
article within the last year, about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we published several articles by a guy named Don Kilhefner, who calls himself the dean of gays in LA, but he's an older man, even older than us. And he wrote an article about something about the Kit Kat Club in
The
West
Black Cat
Hollywood.
Club.
The
The
what?
Black Cat Club.
Black Cat.
Black
Yeah.
Cat Club, and there was a big raid, and it was kind of like our Stonewall or
It
LA.
Right.
predates Stonewall,
and
Dick. It predates Stonewall.
And I've written
Yeah.
about Stonewall because those are some of my earliest memories, being raised by a gay man and who was beaten up. He would take exception with me saying he was beaten up, who was involved in a lot of fights where he did a lot of ass kicking, and he did, for sure.
Yeah, that great book, Set the Night on Fire by John Wiener and Mike Davis. It has an entire chapter devoted to the gay movement in Los Angeles. And we think about Stonewall as the genesis for the change that slowly has begun to occur, but it actually occurred here at the Black Cat Club, I think a year or two before Stonewall.
Yeah. My uncle loved to come to California. He had a greater degree of freedom in California in the 60s than he did in New York. I wanted to show you something, Paul. But let's see if I can bring this here down to my lap.
Oh, orchids.
You got orchid.
This is what you gave us.
Oh, you've kept it.
Look how it's gotten.
Uh-huh.
So it's now, it looks like I might end up with maybe 8 or 9 blooms.
Yeah, you got some more blooms at the top there that are
I
about
do.
to open.
I do. So thank you. It's doing very well.
There was one thing to add to your arguments for Palestinian rights, and this is something that never ceases to amaze me, is that Gaza is the rebirth of the Warsaw Ghetto.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Well, and what they're attempting to do is create a whole bunch of little Bantustans.
Bantustans, exactly.
Yeah, all the way. Now, that's been the whole idea ever since '67, is to cut off these areas from Jerusalem and to cut them off, isolate them from each other so that they can't unite. So you've got the Arabs, Israeli Arabs in Israel, who have their own set of problems. You've got the Palestinians in the West Bank that are dealing with their problems, and then you've got the Gazans, you know. So they're all isolated, and so it's the British idea of divide and conquer. You know, the the Zionists have implemented a lot of what they've learned from past imperialists. And
When they supported Hamas to help destroy Fatah.
yeah, originally it's like beware, you know, what you wish for, you know. And it's like this new in the joint list, one of the groups head by Mansour has, it's sort of like a Muslim Brotherhood group with, I think, 5 seats, has shown an willingness to play ball with the other political groups, because you know Israel is finding a real caught in this problem. You've got so many groups in the far right, and even the Labor Party has dwindled.
The Labor Party's like the Democratic Party here. It's moved so far to the right, it's difficult to tell. And I think
Yeah.
part of what's happened in Israel is also the huge influx of Russian immigrants who come in
Right.
and
Yeah.
are ardently right-wing,
Yeah,
ardently right-wing.
yeah. It's all about free land, you know, cheap real estate, and you know, screw the Palestinians, throw them out, you know. But now you've got this one group, Kahanis group, that is this is Kahanis. This is this you've got.
He was considered batshit crazy about 5 years ago. Now he's part of the governing coalition.
Yeah, it's like this is a terrorist organization, you know, connected with the JDL, this Goldstein, the guy that went in and murdered 29 Palestinians while they're in prayer in Hebron.
Hebron,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, at what point do you know, the people in this government and even Democrats say enough is enough?
Right. That's right.
I listen, I think the peace, the signature element to peace in the Middle East is the United States to say, tell you what, no more money, not another nickel to settle your issues amicably with the Palestinians, because we fund them billions of dollars.
And we do that for a reason. And the United States will not say no more money until the people of the United States and maybe even the world demand that. The United States funds them for a reason. They're getting something in exchange, and they really don't care about the Palestinians.
No,
Just like this, like they don't care about Black and brown people
no,
Right.
around the world.
no.
Yeah. So, well, this was great. Thank you so much, Paul. You know,
Thank you, Paul.
we're at our time,
All
but
right,
Tanya,
thank you. I appreciate your thanks.
yes. Tanya
that
had
was-
something that she wanted to say. She wanted to ask us. Tanya.
I think
That
that's
was
about
wonderful, Paul.
the
Can you
presentation.
hear me though?
Yeah,
Yes,
Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. One of my AirPods is broken.
What? No, you,
That was beautiful.
Tanya, you wanted to talk to all of us, right? Not just Dick and I.
no, she's
Yeah,
talking to all of
everyone.
us.
So I'm going to
About a
stop the
Klatch.
recording, okay?
Yeah.